Hey there, this is Pastor Nate checking in with your Calvary Live. Recently I've been thinking and I've been paying attention to how many times in my day I say be safe or be careful. And I realize this comes mostly out of a parenting figure and saying to my daughter to be careful or be safe. We want the best health for them. But I almost wonder if it's to the extreme, as I've been counting lately, just how many times we say this. And where does this come from? I think where this comes from is our fear-based society that we live in. And let me say more to this. So fear is a very valid emotion. We all experience fear at some point in our lives. And right now, especially in our context today, there's a lot of fear going around, and it makes me wonder, what are you afraid of? You know, when I think of big picture things, I think about there's fear of civil unrest, there's fear of an economic recession, there's fear of unemployment, there's fear of providing enough, there's fear of racism and hate and ageism and sexism that exists within our culture, deep within the underroots of our culture. And those are valid things to be afraid of or fearful of. And when I page through scripture, it's kind of amazing. You actually see a lot of the same fears. You see, in Jesus' time, there was fear of civil disobedience. There was fear of the religious leaders. There was fear of crowds. There was fear of political unrest and even civil unrest amidst a civil war. All of these fears were cast upon the people. And like in Jesus' time, in our time, what you do with that fear really determines a lot about your life. You see, I think fear can be kind of taken in two different ways, where there's two different kinds of fear, and I want to talk about that today. The first fear is the emotion that we feel that oppresses us, that holds us back, that holds us down, that cripples us. It's a drug that our society, that our culture is addicted to. All you have to do is turn on the news, and you will see a lot of fear. Why is this fear so rampant in our culture today? Well, because someone can use that fear to hold you back, to oppress you, to get you to do things that you may not otherwise do. This fear is deadly. This fear is the exact kind of fear that Jesus speaks against. In fact, in the resurrection story in Matthew 28, when the angel of the resurrection comes and is sitting at the tomb of Jesus, the guards, what does Scripture say in 28 verse 4? The guards begin to shake, and they become so fearful that they are like dead men. That's what this fear does. It shuts us down. It blinds us. It continues to cripple us in all that we do to make us like dead men. But there's another kind of fear also. And the Bible calls this the fear of the Lord. And this fear is an awesome, amazing kind of fear because it understands who God is. It understands who we are. And that relationship and the good news of Jesus Christ and what that means for us today. I want to use a story in Scripture. It's a pretty well-known Scripture story to talk a little bit more about this. It comes from Exodus chapter 14. It's the Exodus story, right? These chosen people of God, the Israelites, who are called to be a light to the nations, to be a priestly nation, so that all others may experience God. Well, they're oppressed, right? They're in bondage to the Egyptians. And as they're in bondage in Egypt, Moses comes and he calls them out, and they reluctantly, but they go and they follow Moses, and they come out to the Red Sea, and that's where I want to pick up the story. It's chapter 14 of Exodus. As Pharaoh approached the Israelites, they looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified, and they cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us out to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians, it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Do you hear what the Israelites are doing? They're using fear in order to go back to the old systems of brokenness and oppression, because that's all they know. They're willing to go back into those old systems that have wiped them out as a nation, because they are fearful of what God is bringing them into, of what the moment could be. And this is one of my favorite verses in the Bible, chapter 14, verse 14. Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians that you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." What are you afraid of? And what is that fear doing to you? Because you see, if it's this fear-based society that we live in, that fear is going to shut you down. It's going to blind you to seeing that God's desired future in your life, and it's going to want you to retreat to old ways and old practices and old things that are no good for you. And they're no good for anybody else. But there's a new kind of fear, a different kind of fear. I'm going to jump ahead in the story to verse 31. The Israelites have been delivered. They cross the Red Sea. They see all that happens. And that now that they're standing on the other shores, the different side of the sea, they look back and they say this. "And when the Israelites saw the great power the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses, his servant." Fear. Fear can shut you down. But the fear of the Lord, knowing who God is and who you are, can drive you to trust in him. And to know that wherever you're at, whatever you're going through, whatever battles that you face today, God is fighting for you. God is with you. You see, for far too long now, fear has held you back from doing the things that God has called you to do and to go to the places that God has called you to go. But that fear no longer exists, for perfect love drives out fear. And so today I invite you to put your fear in the Lord, to put your trust into the Lord, and to follow him. Follow God.
When he told you you're not good enough, when he told you you're not right, when he told you you're not strong enough to put up a good fight, when he told you you're not worthy, when he told you you're not loved, when he told you you're not beautiful, that you'll never be enough. Fear is a liar. He'll take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear in the fire, 'cause fear, he is a liar. When he told you you were trouble, you'll forever be alone. When he told you you should run away, then never find a home. When he told you you were dirty and you should be ashamed. When he told you you could be the one that grace could never change. Oh, fear, he is a liar. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear in the fire, 'cause fear, he is a liar. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. Oh, fear is a liar. He'll take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your